An Indiana foster mother says a 4-year-old who spent most of his life under her roof died months after a court ordered him to be reunited with his birth parents. Gina Hullett said she tried to alert the Department of Child Services of abuse happening inside his birth parents' home for years, but was ignored. Tonight, our Madison Stacy has a story behind a heartbreaking case, now prompting new legislation at the State House.
Just everything's a constant reminder. Dandelions. He would squat down and pick up the dandelion.
Judah is not Gina Hullett's biological son, but from the start, he was always her baby boy.
He called me mommy, called my husband daddy. My kids were his siblings.
At 4 years old, he was already a comedian.
Cheese.
He liked to dance. He loved to dance.
Baby.
That's you.
Baby.
When Judah was born in 2017, Hullett discovered he was placed in foster care. As Judah's second cousin, the Department of Child Services arranged a kinship placement so Judah could be surrounded by family. That also meant Judah was required to spend some of his time in the home of his biological parents. Early on, Hullett suspected abuse at the home.
It's very, very sweet and loving up until he would have visits and then he would come home angry.
Hullett says she tried multiple times to alert DCS to the potential abuse, but that they never acted on her claims.
I'm screaming for help and nobody's listening.
But Hullett at least knew he would be safe once he got in her arms. Judah seemed to know that too.
Oh, every time he'd come home from a visit, he'd tell me, "Take off your shoes, Mommy." He knew if my shoes were off, we weren't going anywhere. He wasn't going to visit, we were staying at home. He would scream and they would have to pry him off of me because he did not want to go to visit.
In April of 2021, Jenna says a judge mandated that Judah be sent back to live with his biological parents for a trial home visit. Any further access to Judah would depend on his biological parents, her cousin Alan Morgan and his wife Mary Yoder, who denied the Hullett's access.
And then it went from 3 days a week to just completely ripped them from us, put them with them, and we weren't allowed to visit them. So in my eyes, he was probably scared, didn't understand why we dropped him off there and never came back. I was mourning him then, but I always had hope that we would see him again. I even told my husband I'm going to start writing him a letter so when he gets older, I want him to know that we always loved him.
But those are words of love Judah never grew old enough to hear. On October 11th, police found 4-year-old Judah, the boy who loved music and dandelions, dead on a bedroom floor of his parents' home. Court documents show he was found naked, covered only by a blanket and bruises. An affidavit also shows Mary Yoder told police her husband would shut Judah in the basement, naked and alone, dimming the lights as a scare tactic. She said Judah was bound with duct tape and beaten as punishment for not being potty trained.
Only the other thing I can do is try to make sure that it doesn't happen to anybody else. I'm tired of hearing about the system failing children and babies, and nobody should have to bury their child, and although I didn't give birth to him, he was my baby.
And Judah's story has caught the attention of state lawmakers. State Senator J.D. Ford met with members of the Hullett family. He just filed a bill that centers on making changes to what information DCS must include in their end-of-year child fatality report, specifically about children with a previous history of abuse.
We need to get this information, and we need it sooner rather than later. We need to do more.
So Gina keeps pushing, because for Judah, it was already too late.
I'm having such an overwhelming amount of stress. I'm only doing this because I want awareness for other children. I want justice for Judah. It's the only way that I can pay him back, is to try to get justice for him, because it didn't have to happen. It shouldn't have happened. He was happy with us.
Judah's father faces charges of murder and neglect. His mother faces neglect charges. Both pleaded not guilty at an October arraignment. The family is holding a benefit lunch and vigil for Judah in LaPorte tomorrow. We do have more information about that event and details on the legislation inspired by Judah. That can be found at WTHR.com.